Hello and welcome back to Aston Martin and Season 2 of F1 Manager 2022. Technically 2023 in game, and I'm starting on this screen because there's spoilers on the main screen if you didn't watch the in-between episode that came out on Sunday. I'd understand if you missed it. I don't normally upload on Sundays, but that kind of made sense to pop in there. That's the one that deals with driver changes, engine choices, etc, etc. So, of course, there's changes across the grid. Go check that out. Get yourself caught up so that it's not a surprise when I tip things back over again. Good, there we go. Yeah, we moved Pierre over to car 1 and got Mick in for car 2. So the good news is now that my best driver is in car 1, which means I can send them both out at the same time with the pits and they'll come out in the correct order without me having to manage that. That is literally the only reason why Pierre moved over. Now the other thing is that's our comparison with other cars. The off-season, despite the fact we did research in every single area of the car, hasn't gone well. If I show you the rank, yeah, low speed, we're above average. So it's not quite as bad as the starting point we were last time, because we were in the bottom half of everything last time when we started. So at the very least, we're above average in something. However, everything else is a little sketchy. Now, how close we are on some of these other sections, not fully certain, but we'll find out soon enough, I guess. I should clarify, this is also with 2 new car parts already. The rear wing will arrive after this race, and then the underfloor a little bit later on. And just because we've enjoyed Crofty's intros for a full season, I now do not feel the need to include them in the video, so I will just see you immediately for qualifying from this point onwards, just to save us a little bit of time in these videos. Right then, practice. Well actually, practice may not have been as alarming as I thought, because I now notice that Mick's best practice lap time was only 3/10 slower than Pierre's, which doesn't seem right, considering he was running most of the time about 5 to 7 tenths off.
Radio check.
Can't hear you though, Mick, but I guess we'll find out in qualifying itself. I'll see you for the flying laps of the second runs. So, first lap's in the bag and Gasly is an alarming 7th. I would not expect Mick to get through this session. Bottas, Vettel and Albon are all behind. Ironically, Vettel being held up in that. I don't know who by. If it was by one of our cars, then that would be funny. But we do just need to shout out this season's one and only rookie in the form of Jack Doohan at AlphaTauri. He's in 9th currently. We do also have to address the fact that Leclerc and Russell clearly were held up, and I would suspect Norris as well as being one of the hindered drivers. But Bottas has been supremely faster than Stroll in practice, so like, the gap between Stroll and Bottas in terms of lap times is even bigger than Gasly and Mick's. And despite the Vettel is a higher rating, he does seem to be slower than Magnussen. I don't know why. Anyway, cars have started to come out now. Gasly needs this less, but I do think he does need to come out just because 5 tenths I don't feel comfortable with. Pierre just watching everyone go by. He's going to have to literally wait for everyone higher up. Oh no, not quite. But Mick will close rank behind the Mercedes and create a Aston Martin sandwich for that driver. Is it Russell? It is Russell. Russell needs it more. Russell needs it more and he's out behind Gasly. Okay. There we are. Mick's first flying lap in an Aston Martin, taking over the mantle of his mentor and friend Sebastian Vettel, who has some work to do as well. But just go focus on Mick for this one particular lap because I suspect this might be the last we see of him in qualifying. He does appear to be probably, on paper, the 3rd slowest driver when you factor in all the cars that look like they've been hindered. Yeah, we're back down there in terms of overall pace, but fingers crossed the new rear wing, that's a tough thing to say. The new rear wing which comes in momentarily, that comes with a... Well, the one we've got is basically the worst of any car. So improvements there will provide the biggest improvements overall. And Mick's already on the borderline because someone went over the line. It was Vettel across the line first, actually. He goes 12th, so he's behind Gasly at least. Ricciardo goes behind Gasly. I think Gasly's going to be okay here. 3 drivers have already crossed the line slower, and we can pretty much guarantee the other Williams and Mick will be behind him. It still annoys me that the fastest cars come out again. There's no need for it. There's no need for Red Bull and Ferrari to come out again. Or Hamilton in that particular session. Russell needed to go again, just because he would have been in the bottom final if he hadn't. Mick crosses the line, does 100th faster. That annoys me too. But it's Stroll does get out. Vettel actually out in Q1. We might have been right to have sent... I'm not sure if we were right to have sent Gasly out again there. Oh, Mick. At least it's your mentor alongside. 7 tenths. 7 tenths was the difference. Fascinating that Jack Doohan was faster than Alexander Albon. Shout out to Jack Doohan, who is almost certainly rated worst. Gasly's 8th. The two... Oh, Hamilton. Yep, sorry, I can just see him there. Hamilton lurking in 13th, both McLarens as well. I think they may be faster, or Norris is at least normally. I think Gasly can nick top 10. I do think Gasly can get in the top 10. He was 10th in Q1, and I don't think anyone was unrepresentatively out of the top 10 by the end of that session, so I think he can just do it. But it does require them getting a good track position and not having anyone up his chuff when it comes to actually doing the flying lap. Well, there's the Red Bulls anyway. It's really the Ferraris I need to get out of the picture before we send Gasly out. Because once again, they would not be coming out right now. The top 4 are actually separated by 4 100s as things stand. But we do need to wait for the other Ferrari to get out. And I see the movement from the Ferrari garage, so we'll send Gasly out now. He's going to have a McLaren, Mercedes behind him, but they're not that much faster than Pierre is anyway. So, Pierre's flying lap to get into the top 10 and Q3. 30 seconds on the clock, everyone got across the line without any issues. Now, hopefully, Pierre kept in touch with that Ferrari somewhat well enough. I don't think a toes are going to be a thing from that Ferrari, unfortunately. It does look like there's enough of a gap to the Mercedes behind, as I hope there would be. The McLarens are kind of on top of each other, which may or may not help them, I don't know. Yeah, really there should only have been 11 cars driving in this session, because zero reason for the Ferraris and Red Bulls to come out again. I hope that's part of the patch, by the way. They've not mentioned it as part of the patch, but I hope that's part of the patch. Just a bit more AI logic in qualifying would be nice, about when cars come out, or don't, as the case may be. I can't imagine it'd be that difficult to code. It would just be like an AI judgment on their car's time versus the cutoff time and expected cutoff time based on previous sessions, and then it'd be just like a percentage chance thing. You just roll a percentage chance to see whether or not they think it's worth the risk. But Gasly's currently outside the top 10 because people have done laps. Norris into the top 10. Hamilton into the top 10. They're the ones we were concerned about. Who's gone in the top 10 that I wasn't accounting for? Gasly 11th. Barely improved. He was 2 1,000ths off Ocon. 2 1,000ths! Oh well, we've got some clean tyres at least. Who didn't I account for? Was there an Alpine outside the top 10 off the first runs that I didn't notice? Because I'm pretty certain Gasly was 8th after the first runs, and I was assuming Hamilton and Norris would go ahead of him. One of the Alpines must have been outside the top 10 originally, and I didn't notice for whatever reason. Again, Bahrain under fuel to begin with. Either I missed this the first time I went to Bahrain, but the Abu Dhabi problem's here again. There's less fuel than there is laps, which, considering the fuel burning, is not great. So, Mick's better on his tyres, so we're going to actually pop him on soft, hard, soft. Pierre, not quite as good, and therefore soft, hard, medium. All three on Pierre's strategy list, although he can obviously push those mediums a little bit harder because they're a little bit more hardy. 11th and 18th is quite a discrepancy. So it's the Red Bulls 1-2.
Lights out, and away we go.
One of the Ferraris was out-qualified by Hamilton. Sainz out-qualified by Hamilton. And I've forgotten to push my drivers off the line like an imbecile. Although I'm not actually fully certain I can push Pierre that much. Come on, Mick. Stay ahead of Vettel, will you? It says position gained by Mick, but he must have lost it off the line because he's still 17th. Oh no, Vettel was ahead of him, wasn't he? We'll watch this then. Because we weren't really focusing on Mick at the back. Just positioned himself on the inside as everyone basically stops going through that corner. That's a lovely angle, but it's a shame you don't focus on the car more. In a good position to actually maybe get the AlphaTauri out of that. I think they also need to create maybe a stable of generic helmets for your drivers when you sign other drivers. Because having the same one on both drivers is a bit dumb. Even if it's just like 3 or 4 designs. Come on, Pierre. You don't really have the same wiggle room on your tyres to push these as long. Well, that's Gasly into the top 10. Mick can actually push these tyres a little bit harder just because he's got that space at the end. We'll rewatch this again. I mean, great driving from Pierre. This is what we've come to expect. That's why he's 85 rated now. 86 rated? 85 rated. So Pierre's on the back of Ocon here, going for the move. Mick's taken Albon behind. Not seeing that replay for a reason. Oh, there we go. Onto the straight, I think. Yeah, it was. No DRS, of course, yet. That will activate next lap. I think the first detection point is actually at the end of the straight. It's not a double detection thing. And as soon as we come back, Pierre's in a good position on the Alpine, but not making anything stick, unfortunately. We should be able to save some tyres just by being in a train. If we have to pit Gasly one lap early, I think we can get away with it. Yeah, we can, just because of the hards. Now, Gasly's got a little bit of space on these other two stints that we can sort of afford to maybe pit him a lap early if we have to. Ooh, that's an interesting place to put your car. And he's got away with it. We'll start deploying now just because. Save some ERS for important moments later on. I mean,
this was the Aston Martin.
It's a dog of a car at the moment, but Pierre wrangling every last ounce of quality out of this car. I can't fathom Pierre Gasly's quality. I am concerned by the fuel. I mean, it's now above, which is good, but DRS will activate when we cross the line, and there's immediately a DRS zone at the end of that straight. So we should be right from here on in. No one's broken DRS apart from Hamilton and Zhou in the Williams at the back. Everyone else is within DRS range of everyone else, which is quite remarkable. Bottas is close to losing DRS, but we're going to have to conserve now a bit. We'll push at the end of the stint if we have to with Mick. Someone's going to have to break DRS somewhere, and I don't know where it's going to be. But it is one train all the way down to Albon, actually, now. Who's the first to blink? I'm looking at you, Danny Ricciardo, at 9.76. Who's run wide? Running wide here is a problem if they're off the track. Whoever it was stayed on the track, evidently. Oh, it's Perez. It didn't cost anything, apparently. Daniel Ricciardo, the first one to blink in terms of DRS. Which makes life a little bit better for Pierre Gasly in 9th. Because it means there's likely going to be a gap between 11 and 12. So it means the likelihood of falling out of the points becomes that little bit less. Mick got Stroll at some point. I didn't see that happen, but Mick got Stroll. In the fight of the not quite as good second drivers, as their more senior compatriots are fighting each other in the points. It's a little bit quite funny that this pair of fights is happening between Bottas and Gasly and their teammates at opposite ends of the... I say opposite ends. Nearly opposite ends. But Bottas did break the DRS temporarily, but he might have it again for this straight, which is annoying. But Pierre's got it, which is the most important thing. Albon's had an issue. He's miles off Stroll all of a sudden. That's good news for Mick, at least. I can't remember what my incentives were for this one. Who's run wide? It must have been at that corner. And it must have not mattered to anyone at all.
Sounds like someone's gone wide there.
It was Doohan. He was only just ahead. Why did that say Mick didn't have DRS? Maybe it just turned off by the time I looked at him. He's got it for this straight, at least. But Magnussen's broken the chain. Oh no, I was going to say Magnussen's broken the chain, but that's just because he's taken Ricciardo, who originally broke the chain. Oh, hello. Is it worth attacking the tyres more, pitting slightly earlier, in order to get into the DRS of Russell? If it's possible at all. Yeah. And maybe it isn't. Yeah, it's not. And the amount of time we lost on that straight alone was absurd. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not worth it. Did put a little bit of a buffer onto Bottas, but not enough. Yeah, it lost about 8/10 on that straight alone. So now everyone's just driving in pockets of DRS trains. Oh, who locked up there? Oh, it was a Williams. Yep, saw that one coming. As soon as Pierre's head of the train, two drivers get past him. Bottas knock on. Mick's taken Danny Rick. Did Danny Rick lock up as well? Schumacher overtakes Ricciardo. How did this occur?
This was the Aston Martin.
Oh, just opportunist Mick. Nice work. And I like the fact that Mick's number is actually visible on the car. And fascinatingly, Daniel Ricciardo's already outside of 1 second. Jack Doohan had a moment, is down to 19th, which means Mick is up to 13th, keeping Magnussen for company. Now, Daniel Ricciardo might close up again. He's not within a second by the time this DRS happens, so If Magnussen has the pace, then we could pull away from them. And we are pulling away from them. And we're overtaking Magnussen. As Mick Schumacher overtakes his former teammate, Kevin. Surprisingly, all of a sudden,
Let's have a look.
the
Right,
two
watch
Aston
this.
Martin drivers are
There's
only
Schumacher.
separated by 3 seconds, which seems wild. I mean, if this is mixed racecraft, I'm waiting for the bubble to burst with Mick Schumacher here. Like, I might actually be able to break Magnussen's, because I can actually attack Mick's tyres that a little bit more.
Push the tyres hard now, push the tyres.
I might be able to break DRS on Magnussen. Not on this straight, obviously, but he was 7/10 ahead of Magnussen. We'll keep the RS for now, but it's remarkable. Mick's tied 18th, he's 12th. Can you build up a second anywhere on this track, Mick? I'm getting the feeling the answer is no. I'll deploy through this section because you did get 7/10 by the time we got to the detection point after overtaking Magnussen. So I can't imagine if you're actually deploying with attacking and all that jazz. Like, somehow we managed to get to 7/10 by the time we got to the end of the next straight. I just want to see if it is possible. This may be a waste of VRS in the end, but no, they've held on a little bit firmer this time. That's a shame. We might keep them on the attack on the tyres down the straight just because it gives them a little bit more. Did sort of compromise Magnussen there, actually. But we say we can't get away with burning those tyres for that long. He'll just get... Oh, that's a point. He might get him back.
Haas with an overtake.
I was about to say, he might get him back before the detection line. But Mick's going to be ahead by the detection line, which isn't great news. Although he's kind of closed Danny Rick off, which has allowed Stroll to go round instead.
Haas with an overtake.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario. What just happened there was the absolute worst case scenario. I hate the game sometimes for doing stuff like that. Because now he's out of DRS range as well somehow, which wouldn't happen. He's now got to burn his tyres more just to try and keep pace. He was 12th at the beginning of that lap. 12th. But because the game's dumb and doesn't recognise letting people through or whatever, or compromising or whatever properly, he might be back within range by the next DRS line, which is good. But Magnussen got past, well, Stroll and Ricciardo fell off Magnussen in that same process. Gasly's holding firm, which is nice. Yeah, so Mick will be back in range, which is great. I mean, considering that Mick kind of pushed for an extra 2 or 3 laps, or 2 laps in total, I think, the fact they're both on the same tyre wear is fantastic work from Mick. And now we're back in one train again. I'm just happy to let things run now. As long as nobody falls out of DRS range on anyone, we're fine. I'm happy to let each group just keep swapping places with each other. Oh, Pierre actually got close to taking Ocon on that particular lap, but alas, it does seem to be largely just Bottas and Ocon swapping places. Last year's title winner, Carlos Sainz, struggling a little bit in 4th, to the point where Alonso has overtaken him. There has been an incident, but not enough to have caused anything. Oh, it was Zhou Guanyu falling back. Zhou Guanyu actually seems to have a relative amount of pace in that Williams. He was actually running with Vettel and Albon before his moment. I say relative, just compared to Tsunoda, really. Mixed pit window is first. Zhou is having all sorts of problems in that Williams now. Whilst he's got the comparative pace, I think that's the 3rd time in this race he's locked up. But Mick's pitting in 3 laps, so I'm pushing his tyres now. Who's run wide this time? And is it Zhou? Oh! There has been a crash.
Contact. Several cars involved. Let's see what happened there.
DRS is
So
disabled.
let's look at this. Here's George Russell.
So I'm going to presume it's a lock-up. Oh, no, they've just...
Goodness me, that is a serious
Excellent work from everyone behind there, by the way. Excellent work. So it didn't do anything. It's just a VSC.
Virtual safety car, slow down. Copy.
Huh. Mick was pitting in 2 laps anyway. The drivers are too close together to actually pit them both, I think. Verstappen and Perez have pitted... Sorry, both Red Bulls pitted at the same time. Leclerc's come in. Sainz has come in. Oh, we've got to make a decision on Gasly now as well. We have to. Everyone is pitting. Everyone is pitting. Except Magnussen. Magnussen hasn't pitted. He's the only one. Actually, both Hasses haven't pitted. just wondering, will Schumacher even get held up here? A little bit. He got held up a little bit because Gasly had to wait. Alonso was part of the issue, wasn't he? Alonso must have lost front wing, which has also held up Ocon at the same time. It's carnage. So, okay, even they should just be able to get to their regular stop now. But the VSC is ending, so I kind of want both our drivers to push to the point where they get into DRS range of the car ahead. So I feel like we've somewhat screwed over Mick Schumacher there. Someone's had a moment already. I think it's Lewis Hamilton.
Look at that! They've run
Or it's Russell,
wide.
in fact. Sorry, Lewis Hamilton's behind Gasly because of the double stack. I thought Ricciardo would be more held up than he was. I was expecting him to end up behind Mick, but I think Gasly got stuck trying to get out.
No saving required.
I'm trying to get them into DRS range by the time DRS activates. We do well in the first sector, I've noticed. Right, so Gasly's in Norris's range and Mick is in Ocon's range now. But I'm going to push Mick a little bit longer just because I want that gap to be a little bit less on Mick, just because I don't think he's quite as competent. Ricciardo's run wide. Mick's better on his tyres as well. I forgot he was going on to softs at the end. Oh, they're still pushing their fuel. There we are. DRS now enabled. I mean, it won't be a thing until the end of the next straight. I just saw that immediately go to like 8/10. So, Mick, does DRS enable for... Just curious to see. No, there's no DRS on the main straight. Okay. It's that number that matters for Mick, really. Because I feel like Ocon will deal with Stroll relatively quickly. But I need that DRS train to be a thing for Mick. I'm going to have to switch Mick's strategy, I think, probably to mediums at the end. But that's worked out now. Okay. Don't need to worry about him as much. Get him. Get him, Pierre. Actually, what will be crucial here? I mean, Jack Doohan's probably holding Russell and Sainz up a smidge. I was hoping to get him by the end of the straight, but Gasly's in Norris's gearbox, at least for the main straight. And Russell's already got Jack Doohan, annoyingly. I wonder... Oh, Vettel is now pitted. Like I say, I wonder what the Haasers are doing. And Doohan's pitted, actually, as well, for good measure. Hamilton wasn't in our DRS by the time we crossed the line, so that's good news. Gasly is going to be relatively well clear of Norris by the time we actually get to this line. Up to 8th for Gasly.
Martin are moving up the field.
I mean, technically, you got 3 positions there because of the pits. Oh, they really screwed those guys over by not putting them in the... So Mick's still going to be net 15th when Magnussen pits, I imagine. Stroll is having a surprising amount of difficulty getting past Albon, who's driving his car from last year, I now realise. The Alpines really got screwed over by that safety car. So I'm imagining Norris just flies by here. Although Pierre's just plunked his car right in the way. So Bottas, in theory, holding... I wonder if I can get away with it. I'm just wondering if Bottas is more of a stopper. Well, he might be pitting, of course. Oh, Bottas might not have pit. Or did he have the benefit of being the first one that wasn't a double stack? Yeah. No, Bottas did pit. Hamilton can't keep up. And Magnussen did come out ahead of Mick still. Because we're being held up by Albon, I think. That's what's happened there. Yeah, Sainz got past Bottas.
Play there. Let's have a look here.
Where did he do
This is
that?
the
Oh, the end of the
Aston
straight. The end of the DRS zone. I think the fact we've got DRS on each other is actually helping us stay out of the range of Hamilton. Because we've got that extra time boost
The team watching
by
on
doing it on
and
every
really
single
loving
straight
that.
on each other. Like Pierre and Lando are being incredibly canny. The gap's up to 1.7 on Hamilton. And in fact, if we don't push Gasly, this effect of Norris and Gasly just zooming past each other on each consecutive DRS zone is going to bring us into range a little bit more on the car ahead. Because the car in front will cut the gap that little bit more. Of course, they've got DRS as well, but... And the problem is Sainz is at the front of that queue now. If Bottas was still at the head of that queue, we would be closing on them.
And McLaren with a great overtake.
Yeah, that's just going to be back and forth. Can you... What are you doing here? I mean, I know you're at the back of a queue here. Tank the tyres, harvest a bit. See if we can sort of 50-50 this a bit more. Can't do it with Gasly. Stroll's finally got Albon. Oh, Mick got really caught out there, actually. Oh, he's fine. It's say 9/10s. He's right behind Albon. It's really struggling to actually... Oh, there we are. Sort it out. Now, Hamilton actually did get in the DRS range. We didn't overtake each other enough. All right, that's a little bit of charge harvested for Mick. I wasn't trying to get him to full, but... Oh, Magnussen's gone off. recovered.
Is that a lock-up on the...
Trying to work out what to focus on right now because Mick's still just stuck at the back of that 4. Alonso and Ricciardo in DRS range of each other. Yeah, they are. They're just swapping over constantly. But Mick actually struggles a little bit to stay in range, but the DRS is actually helping him stay in. Who's gone off there? Oh, Albon this time. Oh, God. Albon's gone off.
There's been a lock-up.
Albon went off. It broke DRS.
Sounds like we've had a spin.
Albon's come off the track, and it's put Mick outside of DRS range, annoyingly, because he was the one splitting the gap between him and Ocon/Stroll. Mick's technically up to 14th now as a result, but not catching up. Albon's locked up again. Oh, Gasly's at the back of his train. Is he staying in range? He's staying in range. It's fine. I'm trying to work out if Mick can actually catch up here or not. I don't think he can. We did save some charge. So between deploying the tyres, we'll just switch him to a medium strategy if we have to. So between deployment and... that's not worked, has it? Well, he's got within 1 second. We might have just got it. Yeah. He's back in range. Just to allow him to push those last 3 laps. I mean, even the soft strategy, I can push back a lap or 2. So alternate strategy set up to Mick Schumacher just to see what happens. In fact, I think Mick's... No, Mick's just in the fight. He wasn't overtaking anyone there. Oh, Hamilton actually got clear of Gasly and Norris, unfortunately. Hamilton, unfortunately, got through Norris and Gasly at some point and has broken the DRS. It was kind of expected, but it'd be nice if he could have towed us along a little bit more towards Bottas. Bottas's pace is absurd. They're just swapping place every lap now. It's quite funny. Who's gone off now? Oh, it's Ricciardo, which has broken him off Alonso. I do wonder if that's going to bring Ricciardo down into Ocon. I do wonder if Ocon's got more pace than Danny Rick. Now that Danny Rick's not being towed by his Alpine teammate, weirdly enough. It might actually help Ocon now. Although, Pierre, you do realise that your right-hand tyre is in line with his left-hand tyre, right? You do realise that physically you cannot overtake at that angle. But these guys are just swapping places every lap. In fact, Gasly's doing it here just for fun. What he said, really? Just keep swapping over. Because why the heck not, really? Hang on. Oh, no. For a second, it said Stroll was within a second of Ricciardo, but I think it was just the fact that they swapped places and it didn't update. I thought we'd managed to close the gap already, or Ricciardo had had another moment and I hadn't noticed. But yeah, Mick's still stuck in Stroll, Ocon, and himself. And then it's 2x2, Haas, AlphaTauri, and Williams behind. So it's still a slightly more promising start than this time last year because Gasly, at very least, has the ability to do something. But it's going to be a while until the car's good enough for Mick to be scoring, I think. I do wonder if Mick's faster than Stroll on race pace. I do wonder if Stroll's being massively helped out by Ocon here. We'll find out when we pit compared to when they pit. The thing is, with DRS, each of Stroll and Ocon have enough pace to pass each other, but Mick doesn't have enough pace to do it. Actually, this could be interesting. Oh no, Ocon did get DRS there rather than Stroll. I could say if Stroll was the one to get DRS there, then Mick might be able to make something happen, but he didn't. But this is the eternal quandary that Mick's stuck in. I mean, 14th isn't bad, but he's been largely held by people coming off, and Haas's, once again, poor strategy. And all of Doohan's good work qualifying, as high as he did, has been very much undone in the race. He's gone on mediums. Who's on medium? Just those 3.
McLaren gain a position.
So that's why they held it out longer then. It was because they were on a soft, medium, hard strategy, which I think was available. So we'll expect to see them... Like I say, we'll expect to see them soon, I imagine, but everyone's basically on the same amount of tyre wear, except for Mick, who is massively under because we're obviously pushing him. That's the point. He's on 49.
Good job.
There comes a point where we're about to really shove his tyres.
Aston Martin with a great play there. They've moved up a place.
We're going to have to put him on mediums at the end, aren't we? Because we're very close. The pit window isn't for another 5 laps on Mick there. Oh, Gasly's overtaken Norris. Oh, Bottas has finally lost DRS on sight, but unfortunately everyone's too far behind him now for that to really be a huge problem. And Russell's overtaken him and regained it. Vettel is slowly closing in on this fight with us, and Stroll is slowly closing on Ricciardo. But yeah, Mick being the 3rd car in this doesn't have quite enough pace to get
And McLaren with a great
the one without
overtake.
DRS. As Norris gets Gasly back again. Yeah, we're kind of stuck with this for a while. Out of curiosity, 18th, so behind Albon. I'm going to assume that the pit stop is about 20 seconds without a safety car. So yeah, probably a good 6 seconds behind Albon. I look forward to the lap where Mick can maybe get them, but not happening yet. I think Alonso's gaining on Norris and Gasly. Yeah, he is, but we are getting closer to Ricciardo as well at the same time. Mick Schumacher's tyres are about to hit 45%. I think we need to consider pitting him early. He's good on his tyres, but he's not that good. See, the thing is, he's in this train, so I don't really want to push him, because I'm not sure what benefit pushing the tyres is going to be at this stage, and whether or not there's actually more benefit him having the DRS on these two cars, because he clearly doesn't have enough pace to overtake the one at the front on any given lap. So I think it's actually going to be a case of we keep him running in this for as long as he actually has the DRS whilst running on normal. And if it looks like he's starting to fall out of this DRS, then we tick up the aggressiveness of his driving so that he stays in it as long as possible. And Gasly's got Norris again. In fact, it looks like Gasly comes in first, surprisingly. I mean, Gasly and Norris still only 2 seconds outside Hamilton. Them slingshotting past each other when they actually do get it hooked up and slingshot past each other at least once a lap does actually cut the time on Hamilton. It's just when neither of them overtake on any given lap is when they lose the time, which happens annoyingly more than it probably should. But we can probably start pushing Gasly after the next lap if we want him to come in. There's also enough of a gap between Gasly and Mick that we can pit them the same lap if we have to. Oh, Mick, actually, that's 8 tenths. And that might actually be 8 tenths. Obviously, DRS will keep him in here. Yeah, his tyres are going now. He'll come in before Gasly, I think. And he's going to have to go on mediums. At the very least, it allows him to push the mediums. But he's losing a lot of time now. I think we're officially going to have to swap over to the medium strategy. Because no matter how long he stays on this, then... Yeah, he's actually done alright there, to be fair. Still within 4 tenths. I think it's just through this particular section that follows he loses time. Maybe he just got caught out on the first corner. Someone's locked up. Not sure who. Perez?
Sounds like someone's locked
Verstappen.
up.
He's still got 6 seconds lead. The Gasly-Norris thing will never not be funny. Just because it's every lap.
And McLaren with a great
You can see with the
overtake.
benefit of DRS, slingshotting, Norris goes back to basically 2 seconds. It was about 2.5 halfway through that lap. They gain a good solid 2-3 tenths, provided they actually slingshot each other past each other. I mean, this is technically the lap to pit Mick on, but he's still in this DRS train. And I don't know how much of a benefit it will be for him to run in clean air. He hasn't got any DRS for me to burn either, which is a shame. Because I haven't been confident enough to take it. I can actually see Daniel Ricciardo now as well. I think we're gonna have to this lap with Mick, no matter what. You can see his tyres are about to go off the cliff, so I think we have to pit Mick. So we're seeing Cronin on this side, by the way. So what are we looking at? 58? I mean, we've actually gained on the leader. That's because Verstappen went off. So we're looking at what? 108? It's still behind Doohan, but less behind Doohan than it was before. Annoyingly, it does look like we could have possibly...
This is good.
I'm intrigued to see actually what the DRS range is by the time we hit the DRS line on that final straight.
Looks like Aston Martin.
If we can get with one,
just
if we can get
gained
away
a
with
race
one more
position.
lap on Mick, I might do that. He's still in DRS range. I'm cancelling his pit stop for that lap because he's still in DRS range on Ocon on Stroll. So as long as he's got that, even on these tyres, I know he's obviously pushing the tyres, but we might pit him next lap just to be sure. Okay, so he's got DRS on this particular lap. Yeah, I'm just keeping hold of that fuel because it does seem to go down quite quickly. And it's only 1.3. As soon as he's got out of clean air, out of dirty air, it's gone down to 1.3 straight away. What's the gap between the two of them? Gasly is, 15 seconds ahead of Mick. I could pit them the same lap if I have to. Mick's surprisingly keeping on with Ocon here. I know he's pushing his tyres, but he's harvesting at the same time. That does surprise me. I mean, that's actually kind of good. But yeah, Mick's going to be under 30% by the end of this lap, so we have to pit him anyway because he will fall out of this regardless after this. Ocon might pit anyway. Is Norris pitting this lap? Norris isn't pitting this lap. And even though he's harvesting, Pierre's certainly got enough pace to hold on here whilst pushing these tyres, so we'll pay attention to Mick here. Ocon stayed out.
Copy.
They might be
Make sure
going
you
on to
get your
softs.
Pit limiter as you come in.
It'd be interesting to see what happens to this lot, because I know the pace doesn't go off, but I do think the fresh mediums will have a reasonable amount of pace difference on these hards, these old hards. So it'd be intriguing to see what the pace is between Ocon, Stroll and myself, respectively. I can see Stroll on the road. We're going to come out with him. Whether we're ahead of him or not, I don't know, but we're going to be with him.
You can use energy.
And now we use that energy. Now we use that fuel
Yeah, copy.
to try and make sure Stroll stays outside of a second,
Stop
which
lift and coast.
didn't happen.
copy.
Oh, will you join Pierre as he overtakes Norris once again?
You're doing a good job.
So despite the fact he's only got 35% tyres, out of curiosity, Pierre, it won't do it, will it? No, we stay on mediums and we just push them harder. We can just push them harder. A soft stint for Gasly isn't going to be quite enough, unfortunately, even now. I think regardless, we pit him at the end of this lap onto mediums. Norris still hasn't pitted. Ooh, that's actually an alarming amount of time gap, but thankfully there's another DRS zone immediately. Did Mick manage to shake Stroll? No, he didn't. But he is closing on Ricciardo, which is kind of the point. If Mick gets into range on Ricciardo before Stroll makes a move on Mick, that'll be great. It's actually one of the obstacles in the form of the AlphaTauri pits. The other one is still in the way, and hopefully might actually hold up Ricciardo before we get to him. Nah, probably not. We're okay to push Mick on these tyres because this is an aggressive estimate in the first place, so there's a little bit of space to go 5 push on both. And he's now within a second, and the detection line isn't far ahead. And in fact, Mick may get DRS on Ricciardo before Ricciardo gets DRS on Albon here. He does look relatively close to Albon, but he's not within a second yet. And yeah, I think we're okay. We're still deploying, I now realise. Bye, Daniel! We broke it on the Stroll as well in the process. And Mick's now in DRS range of Albon in the process. Save the fuel again. Right. Pierre in the pits. Let's see what the pit stop time is. Didn't really check where I was going to bring him out. 2.7. That seems relatively on the slow side for Pierre. Vettel is still out and has gone past. And actually, Pierre arrives in clean air. Mostly. There is a Vettel, of course, in his way. But he's a little bit up the road. Mick Schumacher's done the fastest lap. I'm sorry, what? I'm just trying to process this. Stop. You can deploy now. Deploy, Pierre. Deploy. Use the fuel as well. Use everything. Bloody hell.
No saving required.
What's Vettel's tyres? Because he's just gained like half a second within 3 corners. Oh, Vettel's tyres are gone. That's why. That's why I wondered. Is Mick feeling all right? Mick did a 134.3. Stroll, who's on the same tyre, same strategy, did 135.5. Was Mick being held up by Stroll that entire time and I didn't even think about it? I can see Ocon's doing a 137. I wouldn't be surprised if Mick's undercut Ocon there, because he went 3 seconds faster. And don't forget, Gasly just had DRS on Vettel in the meantime, so yeah, he's well cleared Norris in the process. Does Hamilton need to pit again? Hamilton does need to pit again. Gasly might undercut Hamilton, depending on what Hamilton's lap time is. Yeah, Mick without deploying and DRS did a 135.4. That's his normal pace, but Stroll did a 136.4. So he's still a second slower. And Ricciardo is 2 seconds slower, somehow. And keep an eye on Hamilton. Hamilton's on the main straight right now. The back straight. Penultimate straight. There's 3 straights. There's 4 straights, I suppose. So Hamilton's coming around the final corner now. Leclerc's pitted on this lap. Hamilton has continued. And Hamilton has done... Oh, he did a 136.5 last... Oh, he's doing one mid 136s. We'll find out what Gasly's first representative lap is. And he's going to have to stop deploying now. Again, his original strategy was based on 4 push. That's the new fastest lap. And that's actually important because Gasly is in the top 10. Vettel is now pitted, which is nice. Oh, Norris hasn't done a first lap yet. That isn't off. So Gasly has just gone 3 seconds faster than Hamilton on that one particular lap. Just saying. I want to know what Norris's first clean lap was. Mick, Ricciardo and Stroll are now doing all 136s. So that's sort of evened itself out. But Mick's gathered himself that gap. Importantly, just paying. Did I never come back after a highlight? I do hope that hasn't been too long. It probably has. I need to know what Norris's first proper normal lap is. So Gasly's first normal lap is a 134.8 and Norris's is a 135. So they are comparative. And importantly, Norris is still going faster than Mick Schumacher. I was marginally concerned that he might actually be able to catch up if he's pushing his tyres, but... And speaking of... Hamilton and Alonso cannot be going to the end of this race, surely. They're going to have to pit. We are now only about a combined 6 or 7 seconds behind Alonso, who himself is only 9.5 seconds behind Hamilton, which means we're about 15 seconds behind Hamilton. We put 6.5 seconds on Norris through that pit stop sequence. 6.5 seconds. Considering we were literally swapping places every lap before that, 6.5 seconds. Unbelievable. Yeah, keeping Ricciardo 2 seconds behind Mick is going to be the fun bit. We'll just sort of maintain that as a gap, I think, if we can. Although it does look like he's kind of largely maintaining itself. Alonso's getting DRS off Russell, although now he isn't. Alonso still hasn't pitted, and now he's only 3 seconds ahead of Gasly on the road. Bottas has just taken him, although he will have DRS from Bottas at the end of this lap. Why are they not pitting? I mean, I'm presuming they're going to go on softs when they do, but why have they not pit? I mean, it's effectively going to be a free place once I actually catch them. Perez is pit. Alonso's out of Bottas's DRS, and watch this time tumble. And Alonso is out of the DRS of Valtteri Bottas. And now we're saying hi to him. Why have they not pit? There are there's 8 laps remaining, including this one. No one's been lapped, I don't think. Oh, the Williamses have. Of course they have. Gasly still has fastest lap because no one's pitting. Perez, I'm suspecting, might nick it. Who's gone off? Oh, it's a Williams. I am concerned that either Perez or Sainz here is going to nick the fastest lap of Gasly. Not that we were really aiming for that. I've just remembered when I was setting up the race incentives, I naturally went, okay, the standard incentive for the race is based on places. I then went, optional, fastest lap. Don't be silly. 8 laps remaining, we still got it. Sainz's pit. Sainz's pit and come out behind Pierre because he stayed on those hards for that long. Now, Sainz, of course, is faster than Pierre Gasly. Thankfully, Sainz has not come out far enough behind. He's helped Norris out. Mick's in the points all of a sudden because of Alonso's stupidity and still has 2 seconds on Ricciardo and has tyres to spare. Now, the problem will arise with Mick when Alonso gets into Daniel Ricciardo's DRS because they will bring the pair closer to Mick Schumacher. But Russell is on the back of Hamilton here. Bottas is only 2 seconds further behind them, and Gasly is only 2.5 seconds behind him. Gasly is only 5 seconds behind Hamilton now, who doesn't have tyres. Let's be honest here, his tyres effectively don't exist right now, and he's pitted. He will still come out ahead of Mick Schumacher, I'm pretty certain. Gasly is 6th. Sainz has remained 4 seconds behind. We have 7 laps remaining, including this one. Can Gasly hold on to 6th here? I said Hamilton will come out ahead of Mick Schumacher. I wasn't expecting it to be that close. Excuse me while I just...
Use everything from the tyres.
Just maybe try to benefit a little bit here. I wasn't expecting Mick to be within 2 seconds of Hamilton when he came back out there. I mean, we've got the tyres. I'll just let him run at that for a lap and see if they gain at all. No, Mick's still losing time. It was worth a shout with Mick, but I'm pushing Gasly because Bottas is in sort of vague range. And with 10 kilograms of fuel left and an extra one, I think we can get away with pushing his fuel as well at this stage. And he's in range. Right then, there's Valtteri Bottas for Gasly. And of course, by pushing Gasly on his tyres to get him in range of Bottas, Sainz has stayed a relative amount back as well. By Valtteri, I suspect this is going to be a bit ding-dong for the remaining 3 laps. But Pierre's up to 5th. And Mick still has 2 seconds on Ricciardo. The Alonso-Ricciardo slingshotting thing has happened because Mick did build up about a 2.5 second gap or 3 second gap whilst I pushed him to try and catch up on Hamilton, but that now has gone, unfortunately. But yeah, each time they overtake each other with DRS, they cut that sort of 2-3 tenths, which means final 3 laps.
3 to go.
All out, please, Michael. I'm assuming it's Michael, or is he just straight up Mick? I should have looked that up. Is he Michael Jr. technically? Obviously just avoided calling himself Michael when racing for the connotations. With 3 laps to remain, we might as well push Mick's tyres just to make sure Alonso stays behind. I think really with 3 laps to go plus 0.7 laps we're going to be okay.
Lift and coast. Copy.
The same way that Gasly is. We might as well attack as well with Gasly just to try and make sure Bottas stays behind. Yeah, pushing Mick on his tyres is keeping the gap on Ricciardo now, which is nice. So Verstappen starts his final flying lap 8 seconds ahead of Leclerc. That seems to be a 1-2-3. That's very much in the bag already. Along with 4th, Russell 23 seconds. I mean, it's alarming how similar that is to real life. Verstappen ahead of Leclerc, ahead of Perez, Russell about 20 seconds behind. But stupid plans from Hamilton and Alonso have gifted Mick a point here, I'm pretty certain. Provided, of course, he gets through the final lap unscathed. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
Last lap now.
Gasly does still have Bottas for company, but by pushing Gasly on his tyres, he's maintaining a gap. In fact, we'll go off board just so we can watch this fight more properly. Sainz did close the gap a little bit, but not enough to be a problem. I'll be honest, when I started this race, double points I was not expecting. I do feel a little bit sorry for Jack Doohan, who did have a very good qualifying and is going to finish this race 18th, possibly, unless he gets past his teammate. And it is only the Williamses that have been lapped. I think Mick's got enough fuel. He's plus 0.4, and this is the last lap for him as well. The Verstappen wins and almost actually laps the AlphaTauris. And I think at this stage we can just deploy the remain. In fact, no, we'll slap Pierre on defend on his ERS just because. But Gasly will cross this line 5th and actually surprisingly close to Russell, I now realise, whose soft tyres were going off. If I know that, I might have pushed him a tad earlier. Never mind.
Well done. Good drive.
Only 40 seconds off the lead in the end. Mick comes through about a minute off. Only 24 seconds between the pair of them by the end of the race.
Okay, so that's checkered flag.
It's a point, Mick.
Yeah, that was great.
It's a point straight away. First race.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Take all the pick up and I in.
He started 18th, do not forget. I'm proud of him.
Pick up.
I feel like Sebastian Vettel. I'm incredibly proud of Mick there. 18th to 10th. I mean, Gasly went from 11th to 5th. Let's not overlook that. But the only one that gifted Mick a place was Alonso. Everyone else, he legitimately passed through strategy or driving. Don't know why we're seeing the team. I wish they had a different line for that. The fact there's only one line for this driver did well or Pierre did well, it might be different for different drivers, is a little weird. What an excellent result that is. Mick up 8 places, Pierre up 6 places, Carlos Sainz, of course, silly boy, Lewis Hamilton, silly boy. But, like, not even accounting for the odd tyre strategy where Pierre gained 2, that would be 7th and 11th if all the drivers pit when they probably should have. From 11th and 18th, that still is very impressive, just on pure strategy and all that. And considering we did lose out in the VSC pit stops a little bit because we got held trying to release Pierre and therefore held even more trying to get Mick into the box, that's a remarkably good result. Pierre did get fastest lap. I completely ignored the fact that people could have got it. I could have done the fastest lap incentive. I forgot that actually there's a point for pole position this year as well. Not that it's going to affect Pierre. So Perez actually got pole because he's got 16 points. Pierre gets 11 because he got fastest lap. That's not going to be weird. And Mick has a point because he's 10th. And we are officially 4th in the constructors. I can't imagine that's going to stay, but Alpine get no points because Alonso's a silly boy. As AlphaTauri and Williams were going to get no points regardless, really, at any point by the looks of things. But yeah, Pierre and a point for Mick will take 12, thank you very much. Alfa Romeo going to be carried by Bottas, like we are by Gasly. How many points? 1,100 for Pierre, 1,000 for Mick, because of qualifying. That's largely the difference. I forgot about... Right. Above my head lists the successful and failed overtakes and defends. Because of the sequence with Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly has 23 successful overtakes and 16 successful defends, 15 failed overtakes and 19 failed defends. I'm pretty certain that is basically the entirety of the time he spent with Norris, maybe defending from Bottas at the end as well there. And because Mick didn't really get into a sort of swapping position, he just sort of got stuck behind those two. I'm surprised him trying to get past in DRS zones on those 2 cars that he couldn't get past when he was the 3rd. I'm surprised that didn't count as failed overtake more than it did. And look at the driver bonuses. Both of them get their driver bonus, but it's only 860 grand lost, which is basically just over half of what we would have paid Seb. 100 grand if Mick gets top 10. 100 grand. It cost me 100 grand that he got 10th there. But it's 100 grand well spent. Ollie Caldwell's contract actually does run out this year. And Ben Michel has a .2 attribute there, so pit crew management, the only sensible place to put it, because they've already got a great affinity. I mean, actually, I might up his feedback soon, because Pierre and his feedback is a little slower than I would like. I just realised his contract is only 1 year left. Oh, no, it's not 1 year left, it's 1 year and a year. That might be the case with Ollie Caldwell as well, then. It is. I mean, lovely work by all involved there. I'll move to the right as we look to the calendar. Unfortunately, the next race actually is within 7 days, so we do not get the rear wing until the 3rd race, which at the very least gives us time to make it without having to emergency build anything. So we'll save a tad bit of money there, and we of course do get 4 million now in the bank. Much needed. Yeah, we get 4 million a month, I think, and then basically 4 million a race as well. So we'll be in the... We'll be financially be a lot better by the end of the month, which is a blessing. But that's it for Bahrain. We'll be back to Saudi Arabia next time out, and well, that's more of a straight line circuit than Bahrain, so I'm not expecting anywhere near as much, because that's where we're particularly bad, thanks to the very poor rear wing that we have, that annoyingly we don't get to replace until afterwards. That's it for me though. If you enjoyed this race, this surprisingly good race, I'll see you next time. But like, comment, subscribe if you did enjoy it, and yeah, see you soon. Ta-ra.